Happy birthday, Roswell. That's right, it is the 75th anniversary of the Roswell, New Mexico UFO crash, the most famous UFO crash in history. Before I get too far into it, please hit like, please subscribe, share on social media, and as I'm going through it, please comment below and let me know what you think about all this craziness. Okay, let's begin. 75 years ago, a UFO crashed in Roswell, New Mexico, and was immediately debunked by the military the very next day. That's right, at first the Air Force actually admitted there was a UFO. The very next day, a weather balloon. So they had an apparatus in place already to debunk this stuff. And this was not their first rodeo. This was not the UFO crash. There have been others that have been discovered over the years that occurred before Roswell, New Mexico. The Men in Black existed pre-Roswell. So the Roswell UFO, the UFO in Roswell, New Mexico is hugely important for the UFO community and for our understanding of what the hell is going on and what the government involvement is. Because this is the first time the public really got to find out kind of some of the shady stuff that was going on. And that wasn't until years later when Stanton Friedman came on the scene and wrote his famous book, and others also came on and started doing their own research. And before you know it, there's whistleblowers, and the Bob's your uncle. Literally, Bob Lazar is your uncle, not really, but he's part of it too, isn't he? As far as what we do with UFO crashes. So, but that comes later in the story. But for now, we've got the Roswell crash being hugely significant, mainly in terms of the UFO community and our awareness of what the hell is going on, but also very importantly, because the Air Force was not able to get all of this material, all of the technology. The Army got some too. How is that important? Well, you have to read the book The Day After Roswell by Colonel Philip J. Corso, which is an amazing book by a very high-ranking guy who was the right-hand man of one of the top generals in the Pentagon during that era. It was the Vietnam era, right before the Vietnam era. And in fact, that general was one of the few generals that was considered to run the Vietnam War campaign. So that's what a high-ranking general he was. And so Colonel Corso, being the right-hand man of this general, was a very high-ranking man indeed. And he was put in charge of the Roswell file, which is everything the Army, because they were Army guys, everything the Army had on Roswell, including materials. And what that meant was they wanted to make use of these materials. They recognized this otherworldly technology and they wanted to do something with it. So they were farming this technology out, and they had been for decades to various companies to accelerate our technological evolution. This is very important because apparently computers came from, modern computers came from the Roswell crash. Presumably there were other crashes too. He mainly talks about the Roswell crash, although he alludes to some other crashes in his book, The Day After Roswell. But he's specifically talking about the Roswell crash and the materials they have. I don't think he wanted to get, he probably had some things that he couldn't talk about. But what he did talk about, and this is very important, is, we were back in the age of vacuum tubes. The Roswell materials, when they were farmed out to whoever they farmed them out to, helped them develop the micro transistor, I believe is the term. Whatever it is, it's the step beyond vacuum tubes that enabled us to miniaturize this stuff and eventually to develop the modern computer. So there was a bunch of other technological advances that came from farming these materials out to various people. But of course, the computer age is got to be the most significant of all of them. Others were like night vision technology and fiber optics, or at least advancing fiber optics. There's a little debate about fiber optics, but that's a different conversation. But yeah, there were various other technologies like Kevlar and stuff that directly came from studying the materials found at the Roswell crash. It's so significant that many people even think the aliens gifted this technology to us. And that could well be. However, I would, from the research I've done, there have been actually people that have psychically connected to the aliens that were dying there at the crash. And those aliens were full of fear. They were not in a charitable mood. Now, some might not buy the idea that humans could psychically link to these aliens. I believe it. That depends on your own woo-woo threshold, as I call it. But if you do believe it, as I do, that these aliens were full of fear and they were not coming here to gift us anything, that seems to indicate some other cause for the crash. There's a really interesting experiencer interview that I have talked about before a little bit, where this woman who is an abductee, and she is one of those people that the aliens train to fly the ships. And that's very common that the abductees are taught how to fly the ships, and they merge their consciousness with the UFO because the UFO is kind of alive. And but they can become the UFO. I know, it's weird. Anyway, this lady says that the electromagnetic sphere of the Earth, the biosphere, whatever it is, whatever you call it, is very unstable and is bad for the ships. The UFOs have a hard time in our atmosphere because of our unstable electromagnetic field. I don't know why our field is less stable than another field, but apparently that is the case. Anyway, so that could be a very possible reason why these UFOs keep on crashing, and that could be the explanation for the Roswell, New Mexico crash. Other explanations put out there are that the military was testing some new radar out there on White Sands or wherever that was. And, that is what brought that UFO down, and not just that UFO, but other UFOs as well. Intentionally or not is unclear. Personally, I lean more toward the unstable field generated by our electromagnetic sphere. I believe that particular experiencer, and to me that seems as credible as anything else. However, I do think it's important to keep in mind that some of these experiencers may have been implanted with false memories, so you never know. Anyway, so Roswell was a very important crash, both for what it has done for the UFO community. I mean, in a way, it kind of created the UFO community, and also for what it has done for our modern culture and civilization, ushering in the computer age and many other technologies. So happy birthday, Roswell. If you've enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up. I would really appreciate it. Also, comment below and let me know what you think. And as always, I would love it if you click the subscribe button and the bell next to it to be notified of future videos. Until next time, Cosmic Road out.